Nicaragua has a highly centralized, authoritarian political system dominated by President Daniel Ortega Saavedra and his wife, Vice President Rosario Murillo Zambrana. Ortega's Sandinista National Liberation Front Party exercises total control over the country's executive, legislative, judicial, and electoral functions. President Ortega awarded himself a fourth consecutive term in the 2021 elections after arbitrarily jailing nearly 40 opposition figures, barring all credible opposition political parties from participating, blocking legitimate international observation efforts, and committing widespread electoral fraud. Independent observer groups and international organizations characterized the electoral process as seriously flawed, lacking credibility, and defined by historically low voter turnout. The 2021 elections expanded the ruling party supermajority in the National Assembly, capitalizing on changes to the Constitution in 2011 that eliminated restrictions on re-election of executive branch officials and mayors. The ruling party consolidated its power in the November municipal elections, in which the majority of voters chose not to participate, by winning in all 153 municipalities. The Nicaraguan National Police is responsible for internal security. The Army is responsible for external security but also has some domestic security responsibilities. Both report directly to the President, pursuant to changes in the Police and Army Code in 2014, but cooperation between the entities is limited. Para-police, which are non-uniform, armed, and masked units with marginal tactical training and loose hierarchical organization, act in coordination with government security forces and report directly to the National Police. Civilian authorities maintained effective control over police, military, and para-police security forces. There were reports that members of the security forces committed numerous abuses. Significant human rights issues included credible reports of unlawful or arbitrary killings, including extrajudicial killings, torture and cruel, inhuman, or degrading treatment or punishment by prison guards and para-police, harsh and life-threatening prison conditions, arbitrary arrest and detentions, political prisoners, transnational repression against individuals located in another country, serious problems with the independence of the judiciary, arbitrary and unlawful interference with privacy, punishment of family members for alleged offenses by a relative, serious restrictions on free expression and media, including threats of violence against journalists, unjustified arrests of journalists, and censorship, substantial interference with the rights of peaceful assembly and freedom of association, including overly restrictive laws on the organization, funding, or operation of non-governmental organizations and civil society organizations, severe restrictions on religious freedom, restrictions on freedom of movement and residence within the country and the right to leave the country, inability of citizens to change their government peacefully through free and fair elections, serious and unreasonable restrictions on political participation, serious government corruption, serious government restrictions on and harassment of domestic and international human rights organizations, lack of investigation of and accountability for gender-based violence including femicide and other forms of gender-based violence, crimes involving violence or threats of violence targeting ethnic minorities and indigenous communities, trafficking in persons, crimes involving violence or threats of violence targeting lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer and intersex persons, significant restrictions on workers' freedom of association, and the worst forms of child labor. The government did not take steps to identify, investigate, prosecute, or punish officials who committed human rights abuses, including those responsible for at least 355 killings and hundreds of disappearances during the pro-democracy uprising of 2018. The government did not address instances of widespread corruption. President Ortega strengthened impunity for human rights abusers who were loyal to him. Para-police and individuals linked to the Ortega government carried out a campaign of harassment, intimidation, and violence toward perceived enemies of the regime, such as former political prisoners and their families, farmworker activists, pro-democracy opposition groups, human rights defenders, private sector leaders, and clergy, other religious actors, and church-affiliated civil society groups. Authorities did not investigate or prosecute these actions,